I recently posted a video about Gen Z in the workplace, specifically dealing with the headlines surrounding Gen Zs being fired, struggling in the workplace. And in that video, I shared my experiences in the workplace, how much I struggled, and ways that I thought that would be very helpful for people who are in corporate America at this moment, specifically younger adults who are in corporate America, and how to navigate those experiences. Now, the commentary, the conversation in the comments was really interesting, but there are a lot of comments that I just wanted to take a minute to respond to in a separate video. So this is going to be part 2 to that video. And like I always say about everything, if it doesn't apply, let it fly. Let's talk about it. Aloha, beautiful humans. Welcome to my channel. If you are new here, welcome back if we've been locked in. My name is Sasha, and I want to continue this conversation about Gen Z in corporate America. Like I said in the intro, I posted a video addressing Gen Z struggling in corporate America, how to navigate those spaces, especially if you want to stay in those spaces and improve them. And I think that part of my video was missing. I don't know if people watched all the way through, but I was very specific and intentional about addressing that video to people who are in corporate America, who want to stay in those spaces and who want to succeed in those spaces. So there were some people in the comments that were like, oh, Gen Z is going to blow the system up, which great. I think every generation has had their own role in changing systems, whether it be blowing them up entirely or reshaping them in whatever way they feel is necessary to make the environment better for the people in that space. So that's what my video was specifically addressing. If you are one of those people who is of the mindset of blow up the system entirely, that is wonderful. This video and that video was not for you. If, however, you are one of those people who is in the system right now of corporate America and are intent on changing that space and navigating it so you can improve it to make it better for others, this is the video for you. This is who I'm speaking to. And I wanted to go in this video, I wanted to go a little bit deeper into if you are in that system and you are trying to navigate it and change it for the better. One of the comments that I got in that video that made me laugh, and I honestly don't know if the intention was to insult me or to belittle me, but if that was, sorry. I'm a very difficult person to insult or offend, so it didn't do either. It just made me laugh. They were like, this is a very millennial take, and rewatching the video, I was like, I think this is less a millennial take. Well, obviously I'm a millennial. I can't help that. So no, like, yes, it is a millennial take. I think most of us, when we give advice or we're speaking about something, it's mostly from our experience. And yes, our age is going to inform a lot of our experiences. Well, not a lot, some of our experiences. So our age or the generational cohort we grew up in or the culture we were socialized in is going to inform a lot of our experiences. So yes, it is a millennial take. As much as it is a millennial take, though, it is also a take from an abundance mindset. I am one of those people who believes that you can either focus on scarcity or you can focus on abundance. I choose abundance. I choose to believe that I am in control of my environment. I choose to believe that my outlook and my perception can shape my experiences. So I'm not a victim of my circumstances. I'm not a victim of my environments. I have control over those things, and which means I ultimately have control over my experiences and how I show up. So that video was to empower Gen Z in the workplace that, yes, I know you're struggling. Yes, I know it's hard. Yes, I've been there. Here are things that I have done to make these environments more pleasant for me to be in. Here's how I learned. And so I'm giving you advice based on my experiences. And my experiences are that of, yes, someone coming into corporate America as a millennial from the housing crisis, from the market collapsing, from the recession, that absolutely, all of those things absolutely formed my experiences in corporate America and my outlook. So if that's a millennial take, cool. I'll be a millennial all day, every day. It is not an insult. So sorry about that. But anyways, in this video, I want to talk about 3 specific things and how I think that perspective and that outlook can absolutely shape our experiences in corporate America, specifically when it comes to climbing the ladder, playing the game, and whether we should be looking for purpose and fulfillment within our work or at work. So when it comes to corporate America, I think a lot of our experiences are shaped by obviously the environment, but our outlook and what we want to come from our work. You know, we talk a lot about work-life balance. We have to ultimately decide what that work-life balance is and how we are going to show up in these spaces. And how we choose to show up in 3 ways, I think is really informs our experiences in corporate America. I want to make this clear. If you do not want to play the game, this video is not for you. If you do not want to climb the ladder, this video may or may not be for you, because I really respect the fact that not everybody wants to climb the corporate ladder. It is not everybody's intention to make it to the highest rung of their organization, and I respect that 110%. A lot of us people work to live. We do not live to work, so I respect that 100%. If you do not want to show up to your environment and hit every single promotion, I respect that 110%. You can stay. This video is for you. If you are going to be in corporate environments, there is this idea that some people have that it should be just enough for me to show up and do my job. My coworkers don't have to be my friends. I shouldn't have to be nice to people. I shouldn't have to perform at work. And while I do agree with that, unfortunately, you are in an environment where it's not necessarily what you know, it is who you know. It is building relationships. And if you want to leverage those relationships, then unfortunately, it is not enough to show up and just do your job. You have to socialize with the people there and build relationships with those people, regardless of whether your intention is to climb the ladder. If you just want promotions in terms of salary, but maybe not title, then your performance is directly tied to your relationships with people. If you strip corporate America from an entity in and of itself, when you think about any other environment you've been in, when you are socializing with others, when you are showing up in a certain space, it has never been strictly about how you are showing up and how good at what you are doing. A lot of how you are received has to do with how people around you are receiving the energy you are putting out. And generally, no, in those environments, it's not tied to, you're not making any money. It's not a financial environment. It can be, playing on a sports team, or, you're a hobbyist and you're engaging in this hobby with other people, or you're just in this third space, a separate third space entirely, because there is an argument about your place of employment being a third space. And I think that is driven from the fact that we are losing a lot of third spaces, but also the majority of us spend our waking hours at work. So work has kind of taken on there's this blurred lines around work now, whether this is a third space or whether it's not a third space. So regardless of whether you view it as a third space or not, if you think about other third spaces you are in, how you are treating others and how people are receiving you is also a factor in whether you stay in that space, whether people find you pleasant in that space. So I really disagree with this notion that I should just come to work and showing up should just be enough because I'm getting paid to do a job. In a perfect world, that would be true. Yes, but we are not living in a perfect world, and I choose to dabble in the reality of what is than in what should be. And if you want to stay in this environment and create what should be, I 110% respect that. But until you get to a place where you have enough clout and leadership in that environment to determine what should be, you are working in the what is. And the what is that it is not enough to just come to work and do your job and leave. You have to build relationships with people, and those relationships you build with people is, for better or for worse, going to drive and inform your experiences and impact your experiences in this environment, corporate or otherwise. But for the purposes of this video, I'm talking about corporate America. I talked so much in my prior video about the importance of social skills, and this is why having social skills is so important, because like I said in my first video, corporate America is a culture in and of itself. It's a culture with its own languages and its own custom and the norms in that environment. Like I said, this is found in any other environment you spend time in, any other third space you are in, whether it be a hobby, whether it be a team, whatever it is. That environment has its own separate culture. And so you learn the language of that culture. You learn the norms of that culture. If you want to stay in that culture, if you want to build relationships, if you want to thrive, if you want to survive in that space, you learn the norms of that environment. You would never go to another environment and just come up in there and be like, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to show up. And everybody has to guide around me and just be okay with what I want to do. You would never show up to any other environment with that mentality and expect to stay in that space for a very long time, or at least have a good experience in that space. It would not be advantageous for you. Anyone with any modicum of common sense, you know that it would not be advantageous for you to show up in that space in such an antisocial manner and expect to thrive in that space. At worst, people will kick you out. At best, people will merely tolerate you. But if you want to stay in that space, you know it is advantageous for you to learn how to politic, to learn how to move in that space. The same exists in corporate America. And I'm not entirely certain why some people have taken this very hostile perspective and mentality to corporate America when you are moving the same in any other environment. So why would you think it would be different in a corporate space? It's just never made sense to me when people come with that mentality, especially if they are in other spaces where they know themselves that there is a norm, there is a culture in that space. Why would you think corporate America would be any different? So when I say playing the game is essentially knowing the environment that you're in, speaking that language and figuring out what is necessary for you to ascend, to work your way up the corporate ladder if you want that. If you don't want that, then at base level, you need to learn how to play the game so you are not showing up in an antisocial manner that could cost you your job at worst, or cost you to be in an environment that you are hostile in, and people are picking up that hostility and giving that same energy back to you. Whether you want to ascend the corporate ladder or not, you need to learn how to play the game. Learning how to play the game is essentially speaking the language, understanding the culture, knowing where you are, and knowing who you are dealing with. Yes, there are going to be sacrifices you are going to have to make in certain environments. One of the criticisms of Gen Z from that study that they did was Gen Z wants to show up late and stay early. In a lot of environments, they want to see that you are going to be a team player. They want to see that you are going to put in the time and the energy necessary. And that can look like a variety of different ways, but one of the ways in which it looks like is showing up early, staying late, going the extra mile. You're gonna have to make sacrifices. And if you don't want to do that, I'm here to say, I think I have to say this a million times because people really don't listen and hear what they want to hear. And I just know I'm going to drop down into the comments of this video and there's gonna be somebody like, well, I don't want to do all of this. And I'm telling you right now, and I'm gonna hold your hand when I say this, you don't have to do any of it. You don't have to do a single thing that I am saying in this video, because like I said, if your intention is to ascend the corporate ladder, what I'm saying is going to make sense to you. If your intention is to just show up, do your job and leave, then you're not going to jive with anything that I'm saying in this video. And that is okay, because this video is not for you. And if you want to stay, I welcome you to stay, but let's keep it cute in the comments, okay? Because I think I said a lot of disclaimers thus far, and now I'm just going to speak plainly. So there will be no disclaimers from here moving forward, because I've already told y'all like 3 times the intended audience. So let's move forward. So yeah, if your intention is to change the system, in order to change the system, you have to stay within that system. You have to learn how to play the game. You have to learn how to politic, the culture, the language. In order to stay in that system and change it, you have to have longevity. And that longevity is going to come with understanding the culture. Ultimately, in order for you to get to this place where you are able to make change, you will have understood entirely the culture, the norm, the language of these environments, and ascended up the ladder by making those sacrifices so you can inform and change the environment that you are in and shape whatever it is that you are trying to change in that environment, where you can be of the most impact, if not to everyone in the organization, then at least to directly the people you are managing, the people on your team. Before you even decide any of this, you have to decide what your why is. You have to decide what your purpose is, why you are showing up in that space, how you are being fulfilled. And this is honestly like a perfect segue into the myth of fulfillment when it comes to purpose and why you are here, specifically here in this corporate environment, and how you determine fulfillment, how you determine your purpose, how you determine your why for being in that environment goes back to how you view work. It goes back to how you view your job. Are you working to live, or are you living to work? And that answer is going to be different for everybody, because we all have different purpose. We all have different things that fulfill us. We all have different whys, and our why is what motivates us. It's what moves us, is is, why we are showing up, why we are here, why we are in any environment. That is going to be your why, and it's something that is so personal for each and every single one of us. And I touched upon this a little bit earlier, the myth of fulfillment. I think the reason why a lot of people feel so unsatisfied or just defeated or frustrated by their jobs, by work, the idea of work in general, is because over time, how we view work, the worth that we attach to people's job and what they do has changed. I call it the myth of fulfillment, and I think it's born out of this idea that what we should be doing, the time we spend at work, it should fulfill this higher purpose, this greater purpose. And I think it comes with this realization that a lot of us, the vast majority of people, spend the majority of their waking hours at work. We have lost third spaces. We are increasingly losing community. We are in a loneliness epidemic. People struggle with friendship and connection. And so the one place you are spending the most of your time in is your workplace, where people feel it is not a third space and people feel it is a third space. We are losing a lot of spaces that otherwise people would have found fulfillment in, purpose in. We are losing a lot of those spaces. And so increasingly, a lot of people are looking at their work and what they do as their place of fulfillment, as their purpose in life, and attaching their worth to that environment. I personally do not seek fulfillment in what I do. I do not attach my worth to my job. I do not attach my worth and my value as a person to my output, what I am creating. That is a decision that I have made personally for myself, but that decision is made easier because I know what my why is overall. I know what my purpose is. I know what I was put on this earth to do. At least I strongly feel that I know what I was put on this earth to do. And so I do not seek fulfillment in my work, in my job, because I do not live to work. I work to live. Working is a byproduct of how I'm able to live my life. We are living in a capitalistic society, and so it provides me the money that I need to exist in this system, and not just exist in the system of capitalism, but to be happy and thrive within this system of capitalism. But do I, Sasha, attach my worth to my job? No, I don't. And I don't believe anybody should. If it is not in line with your purpose, which you feel you were put on this earth to do. And there is a difference between fulfillment and purpose, and we'll talk about it a little bit later. I want you to put a pin in that because I think that is very important. And I'm one of those probably very annoying people where I feel like words matter, language matters, and a lot of people use certain terms interchangeably, but fulfillment and purpose mean two separate things. Because I don't seek fulfillment in my work and what I do, I am able to show up in certain spaces, and in all spaces, honestly. I'm able to show up in every space, walking in my purpose, knowing what I am intending to put into those spaces, and knowing what I'm going to get out of those spaces with the boundaries that I've created. And I know some people go back and forth about whether your coworkers are your friends or not. That is a boundary you have to create for yourself, because as much as it is that we are learning the culture of this corporate environment, we are understanding the language, we are understanding the norms, you have a right to build that boundary within yourself. So yes, you can build relationships, yes, you can build connections, but you don't have to build those connections. They don't have to go with you outside of your office, outside of your work. So if you want to be friends with your coworkers, if you want to spend the weekends with them, if you want to invite them to your children's parties or outings and whatever, happy hours, great, do that. If you don't and you want to build that boundary, that is okay. But what I am saying is you cannot be antisocial with that work environment. You need to be friendly with the people in your environment. You do not have to be friendly with them outside of your environment. There is a difference. And I want to be very clear that there is nothing wrong with seeking purpose or fulfillment in what you do, what you are being attached to for a living, whatever your job title is or whatever environment you are working in. If you seek purpose, if you seek fulfillment in that, that is totally fine. But everybody's purpose is different in life, which means we are all going to be fulfilled by different things. When you are fulfilled, you derive this sense of happiness and satisfaction knowing that your inner gifts are being used. For example, one of my inner gifts is I'm a great communicator. One of my gifts gifts is community. One of my gifts is bringing people in. I don't ever want anyone to feel alone or isolated. These are my gifts, and I attach them to my sense of purpose. My personal sense of purpose is to build a bigger table so everyone feels welcome, everyone feels included. I love building community. I love engaging with people. I love building relationships. That gives me a huge sense of fulfillment. I feel happy when I'm looking around. I feel fulfilled when I'm looking around and I'm seeing a space that I've created and people are happy there, whether it's in my comment section of a video I've posted, whether it's in my soul cycle classes and I'm seeing people build relationships outside of the class or come to class together. We're just talking to each other in class. You know, that is something that drives a great sense of fulfillment for me because it is attached to one of my gifts, and one of my gifts is communication. Your inner gifts are very specific and individual to you, which you can implement in every single environment you are in different ways. Purpose, however, is a little bit deeper. Your purpose is about finding meaning, direction, your reason to be. Basically, why are you here? And not just here in a corporate environment, a job, a school. No, why are you here on earth? A book that I love and really opened my eyes to my purpose and really caused me to dig a little bit deeper and have this, you know, just this self-search in a way that I've never done before. It's Start With Why by Simon Sinek, and I highly recommend everybody read this book. If you are struggling with purpose, regardless of whether you're fully loving your life, loving your job, you know, if you are struggling with why am I here? You know, what was I put on this earth to do? I highly recommend reading that book, Start With Why by Simon Sinek. It will get you to reflect very deeply about your why, about your purpose, and what you were put on this earth to do, which only you know the answer to. And finding out that answer is going to require a lot of self-searching. Nobody can tell you your why. And this comes with a certain level of self-awareness. And so talking about this sense of purpose, which is deeper than fulfillment, I think that is in part why a lot of people struggle in the environments that they're in, or struggle with this idea of happiness because they don't know what their purpose is. So you are not able to live with intention. And when you are not able to live with intention, you are not being an actor in your life, an active actor in your life. You are being passive. Things are just happening to and around you. And it can drive this sense of scarcity mindset, this sense of like fear, this sense of frustration. And I honestly think that looking at a lot of people, what a lot of people are struggling with is this lack of purpose and the frustration behind that. But if you don't have the self-awareness necessary to understand that I am lacking purpose, or I'm in an environment that is not fulfilling me, or that I am not able to find fulfillment in, bring fulfillment to, because I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know why I'm here. That's like a fundamental core of adulthood, being a human, understanding who we are. This idea of why am I here? What was I put on this earth to do? Because we live in a society that attaches unfairly, a lot of the time, attaches your value, your worth to your job title, to who you are, to what you produce. That there is this increasing sense of hopelessness and frustration attached to purpose when it comes to Gen Z, when it comes to millennials, because unlike our boomer elders or our Gen X elders, we are not hitting certain markers of adulthood, whether it be personally or professionally, that our elders were hitting at our age. And even though the world has changed, that is their worldview because that was their experience growing up. And so we are kind of feeling there is this pressure to conform. At the same time, we are understanding that these environments are unfriendly to us. These environments are hostile. These environments are difficult to navigate. And not just that, but we are increasingly Gen Z and millennials. We are the first generations to be like, I am not my job. I am not what I do. My worth, my value, my purpose is not attached to my job. But we are spending more and more time in these environments that it is hard to seek fulfillment. It is hard to seek purpose outside of these jobs, outside of these roles, because when you get out of the office, you know, you're either tired or there's not enough hours left in the day. And I do think that's kind of an excuse, but what I am saying is I understand it. I understand that feeling, and I lived that feeling. I lived that reality, and I had to make a cognitive, definitive change that I didn't want this for myself anymore. I did not like feeling this way. And so I had to seek fulfillment I had to seek purpose outside of whatever my job title was. And I feel like I have gotten to that place in life, but it is very hard. And when we're thinking about Gen Z, we're thinking about people, at least Gen Z in the workplace, we're thinking about people who are in their early to mid 20s. I don't understand how we got to this place where we think that people should have it figured out by 25. At 25, your prefrontal cortex isn't even fully developed. But we put all this pressure on people to reach certain markers, to say that you are an adult, to say you have made it at 25 years old, when there are people who are still in their 50s who have no idea what their purpose is, who have no idea what their intention is, who have no idea why they're here on this earth. But we put all this pressure on young people and we expect them to have it figured out. And it's not fair. And I understand that sense of frustration that I don't have it all figured out, but I am expected to. Nobody at 25 has it figured out. That's an unreasonable expectation. It's a lot to put on the plate of someone who just got out of undergrad, who may have just gotten out of grad school, who's trying to navigate student loans and being an adult and being independent for the first time. Now you thrust them into this corporate environment. You don't give them training. They're overworked, they're underpaid, they're trying to figure things out by themselves while society is telling them that they're selfish for wanting to be paid what they're worth, and telling them that they should have it figured out, and they're spoiled and they're not hitting certain life markers, when we've created this very hostile environment for Gen Zs and millennials to get to these places, to get these things, to buy homes, to pay off student loans. We have created very unfair conditions for Gen Zs and millennials, and rather than the people who have created this environment, Gen X and boomers, to take accountability and responsibility, it's a lot easier to punch down on people and tell them to figure it out. And so I understand this frustration from Gen Z. I understand the frustration from millennials. I myself, for a really long time. But again, living in that abundance mindset was realizing I can either sit here and I can be frustrated about everything, or I can create the change that I want to see in the world. And even if I can't create the change in the world for everybody else, I can create and influence environments and spaces to reflect what I want. I can walk in my purpose. I can seek fulfillment outside of my job. And that's what I've done. And I honestly feel so happy and so fulfilled in life because I do not attach my worth, I do not attach my value to my job title. And I don't think that is a privilege by any means, because I think when a lot of us push for people to take accountability for their own circumstances and their own life, a lot of people say, oh, that's a very privileged mindset. And I think that requires a certain level of learned helplessness. And I don't deal in learned helplessness. I do not believe my life is a set of fixed circumstances. I believe that I determine my own destiny. And so I show up as an active actor in my life, not a passive actor. Things are not happening to me. Things are happening. I can choose whether they are happening for me and how to use these situations, how to navigate certain situations. I'm not a victim to circumstance, and I do not believe that learned helplessness and frustration and taking out how we are feeling on everybody to be the answer. At a certain point, personal responsibility has to become a factor in the equation. And that's why in my initial video, after I talked about all of these unfortunate and unfair circumstances being put on Gen Z and millennials, but specifically Gen Z, because that's who the study was talking to, I then talked about the strategies and the ways in which to navigate these spaces if you do not want it to be a challenging space, ways to make it better, ways to improve your situation. So if you are going to be in this space for the vast majority of your day, at least you will learn the language, you will learn the norms, you will learn to navigate that space so it can be a positive space for you. A lot of it comes down to your mindset. And I think the mindset with which people viewed my video absolutely determined the way in which they commented and received my video. Because if you are existing in a scarcity mentality, a scarcity mindset, you are not going to take accountability. You are going to find a way to blame everyone for everything that's happening around you. It's not on you. Whereas if you are existing in an abundance mindset, you recognize that your life is in your hands. And so you are going to figure out, okay, I'm going to receive this information and decide how I'm going to implement it in my own life so I can have positive outcomes in this space, so I can learn how to navigate and move in this space. Scarcity mindset tells you I can't. Scarcity mindset tells you it's everybody else's fault, whereas abundance mindset tells you I can. It is the difference between will and won't. And if you've ever taken one of my classes before, you will hear me, oh my gosh, I talk at this ad nauseum. I probably sound like a broken record at this point. A lot of people say, oh, I can and can't do something, when actually what they mean is I will or I won't. And that's the active language that I'm talking about versus the passive language. Being an active participant in your life, taking accountability, as opposed to being a passive participant in your life, thinking that things are just happening to you and everything else around you has to change before you can change, instead of being the first person to take that step to better your own circumstances and your situation. You're waiting for everyone else around you to do that for you, and that's not realistic. But if you exist in that scarcity mindset, you are going to find yourself angry, frustrated, and feeling like you are a victim to everything happening around you because you refuse to take the reins of your life and make decisions that are going to put you in a better position. Can and can't is passive. It seeks to excuse, whereas will or won't is active. It denotes choice. It denotes that I am choosing to do this. I am making the active decision that I will or I won't do something. And if you are somebody who exists in a scarcity mindset, or you don't know your purpose, or you don't know your own fulfillment, you exist in the passive, you exist in the scarcity, you exist in the can and can't, as opposed to existing in the will or the won't. Being an active actor, being an active participant in your own life, deciding that you determine your own circumstances regardless of whatever environment you are in. We live in a culture of comfort. People are addicted to comfort. And as a result of living in a culture of comfort where we are addicted to whatever is the most convenient, the path of least resistance, a lot of people fall victim to chance, circumstance, and honestly, convenience. We exist in this space where it is so easy to reflect on and speak about what everybody else is doing wrong, the ways in which everything else needs to change, how this can be better, how that can be better. But when it's time for us to turn the mirror on ourselves and think about what we could do better, how we can improve, all of a sudden, people seem less willing and unable to reflect about what it is that they are doing that may be informing the circumstances and the situation that they find themselves in. How we may be the ones who are actively marching ourselves towards our own unfulfillment, towards our own unhappiness. A lot of people are so afraid to get uncomfortable, to exist outside of their comfort zone, unwilling to do the hard part now to get them to a place where in the future they will be in a better position. In my initial video, I talked about how at my first job, I was only making $34,000 a year. And someone in the comments was like, oh, well, that's not that bad. If you think about it, in 2024, $34,000 would now be $50,000. And that may not be that bad for you, when I understand that everybody has a different level of what is a good income, what is a good salary, and what is not a good salary. However, I was making $34,000 doing the job of 3 people. I knew my worth. I knew I was being overworked and underpaid. I did everything that I was supposed to do in that environment to put myself in a position that when I asked for that raise, it should have been accepted and I should have been given the raise, and I wasn't. Now, I could have chosen to stay in that situation being happy that I was making $50,000 a year. But instead, I chose to ask for a raise because I knew that what I was doing was worth more than I was making. And also, I had student loans to pay. I had rent to pay, and I was broke. Now, was I broke? And did I have rent to pay because I chose to leave my parents' house instead of staying at home? Yes, that is a choice that I make. And for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. And me choosing to leave the comfort of my parents' home where I was not having to pay rent, going into an environment where I was, how much was my share of rent at the time? I think it was like $800, and then it went up to $1,200. So yeah, was it my fault that now I was in a position to where I was paying $800 for rent? Absolutely. Absolutely. Was that my fault? Did my choices leave me in that position? Absolutely. I made a choice and I had to hold myself accountable for that choice. The same way I made a choice to ask for a raise, and the same way they chose to say, nope, you are not getting that raise. I could have stayed in that situation and I could have just complained about not getting that raise. I could have stayed in a passive place where I just felt like a victim in that situation. I could have stayed in that place and decided this is all that I was worth. I could have allowed their choice telling me that I wasn't worth what I was doing. I wasn't worth being paid for what I was doing. I could have decided that I could have believed that to be true, but I knew my worth. I knew what I was capable of. I knew that what I was doing, I knew that I wasn't being compensated fairly. And so I chose to leave. When I didn't get that raise, I chose to leave. And months later, they had to hire 2 different people. They hired one girl, and then they hired 2 other people to do what I was doing. Realized that they were paying, hey, wait a minute, if we gave Sasha the raise that she asked for, we would have actually saved over $100,000 in salary. They called me, asked me if I wanted to come back at the salary that I requested in my promotion and then some, or the salary I requested in my raise and then some. And I said no, because I knew my worth. And years later, I've been able to pay off my student loans. In 15 years, I've been able to pay off my student loans. And that came from knowing my worth. If I had chosen to think like the person in the comments who said, oh, $34,000 wasn't that bad, I would have stayed small. I would have allowed other people to determine my worth. But I knew what I was worth. And I knew that I was being overworked, underpaid, and I made the choice to leave that environment. I'm not saying it is easy to just up and pivot and to make a change. It is challenging. At the end of the day, we're all making choices. And so unfortunately, Gen Z is in this unfair place where they are being overworked, underpaid, poorly trained, and not set up for success from their schools, from these places of employment, and even their own parents. That is a situation that unfortunately a lot of Gen Z find themselves in, and it's very real. But you can choose to be a victim of that circumstance, or you can choose to be an active actor in your life and say that, okay, this is the situation I am finding myself in, but it is not going to determine my success in this environment. I'm going to show up and I'm going to do what is necessary for me to thrive in this environment and ultimately change this environment so other people, so Gen Alpha and the next generation behind them are not going into unfriendly environments and dealing with what we dealt with as millennials and now what Gen Z are dealing with as Gen Z newly in the workplace. It's all a matter of choice, and it is challenging. I'm not sitting here saying it is easy to make these choices. It is easy to pivot. It is really hard, but ultimately, I'm a firm believer in the fact that we choose our heart. So you get to choose what you sign up for. And if you are going to sign up to work in these corporate environments, you need to show up in a way that is going to guarantee you the most success, because otherwise, what are you doing there? You're wasting your time, you're wasting your energy, and you're creating a very unhappy life for yourself. We are a culture addicted to comfort, and the best thing you can do for yourself, regardless of the environment you are in, is to get uncomfortable and decide, what is my purpose? Why am I here? What am I looking to create? And how can I create that? How can I succeed in this environment? It's hard, but I promise you, it is worth it. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I really hope this was helpful for my Gen Z. And this is not something that just is for Gen Z. It's for millennials. It's for anybody who is working in any corporate environment, because corporate environments can be extremely challenging. But if you are going to stay in those environments, it's going to require work on your behalf, because those are not environments that are going to change themselves. We have to be the change we wish to see in the world. It starts with us, and it starts here, all with your mindset. Thank you so much for watching. Drop down in the comments. Let me know what you think about this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, peace out.